Everybody, this has been back with another vid. Hope everyone is having a great day. And I just want to, before I get going, I do want to just thank God for another day. I just give honor to my Lord. And happy Thursday. And I hope everyone have a great Thursday. And all right, let's get on with it. So I want to talk a little bit about the Duke. Talk a little bit about Duke and Florida during the ACC SEC Challenge. I want to talk a little bit about how Duke did and the scare. And I also want to talk a little bit about how much better the ACC did during the challenge. They actually had they actually was in the lead the first night, which was Tuesday night, and last night the SEC caught back up and took the lead. I think by one, if I'm not mistaken, because if ACC would have won at least one more game last night, it would have been a tie. So from last year, I think the SEC won it was like 14-2 or something crazy. Duke won last year against Auburn, and Clemson won. I forgot who Clemson played, but Clemson won last year too, and that was the only 2 wins for the ACC. So a tremendous improvement from last year to this year. And so the ACC is I believe you can say the ACC is back. They did challenge the SEC. Now the SEC is not as strong as they were last year, but they're still a formidable conference. Still a formidable conference. So I think everybody's saying the Big Ten, maybe Big 12 are a little bit better than everybody else. So, but definitely much improvement for the ACC. Much improvement. So let's get to talking about Duke and Florida. Heck of a game. Kudos to Florida for coming back. They were down pretty good. Duke was in control pretty well, and I was actually a little surprised. And I thought Duke would win comfortably, but it did not work out like that. It definitely didn't work out like that, and Duke had to really had to fight. They actually lost the lead around, maybe 2 minutes left in the game, or a minute, or somewhere around. Might have been about a minute and something left in the game. They lost the lead, but I think they lost the lead earlier for a little bit, and then Duke. No, they didn't lose the lead. Florida came back big time, got within 2-1, and then Duke would get a shot, Florida would get a shot, so it was really close. And then eventually Florida took the lead by 1. Duke was down 64. No, by 2. I'm sorry, by 2. Duke was down 64. So they was down by 2 with a minute and something left. And Jon Scheyer drew up a play to do a like a ghost screen type of deal. He popped back Isaiah Evans popped back out. Cam got the ball to Isaiah, knocks down the three. Very good play. Glad that Isaiah was able to knock it down because he was 0 for 7 before that with 3-point attempts. So he wasn't having a very good shooting night. But he did do other things, you know. And that's the thing is that what I love about this Duke team, what I love about Jon Scheyer is that, Coach Scheyer, is that he always talks about defense. He always talks about defense. Even when the offense is not clicking and things is looking a little rough a little bit, he always goes back on just, continue to play defense. Don't lose. And in other words, don't lose the defense because the offense is not clicking like you would like for it to, or because you missed your last 5 shots. Don't lose the defense. And I have to credit Isaiah because Isaiah had 5 blocks in that game. 5. Isaiah Evans, 5 blocks. I mean, so he took it to heart. He took it to heart, and he still played defense. Pat Gamba, 5 blocks. I think Boozer had a block or something. They had in other words, it's about 11 blocks altogether that Duke had in the game. Well, I guess maybe Pat had 6 blocks or something like that. Or Camp had 1 and he had 5. But anyway, they took it to heart, and they're buying on the importance of playing defense. And I would venture to say that when it came down to it, Duke made the plays, and then they got the stops, and they was able to win the game. You don't play defense, you get lax, you get upset, offense, you stop playing defense, you start being lazy, and you lose that game. You lose that game. So I want to credit Jon Scheyer for preaching that, because that's what he said in the post game. That's what he said, what he told Isaiah. Another thing I want to credit Cam Boozer for the trust he had for his teammate Isaiah. Again, it's those little things that make the difference. It's those little things. And when you look at the fact that Isaiah was 0 for 7 attempts, 3-point attempts. Cam had the ball. Of course, Florida was going to make sure that they was going to have 2 people on them, whatever they needed to do to try to just stop him and have him give up the ball. And that's what they did. But they don't realize that was the play anyway. That was the play for Boozer to give up the ball to Isaiah. And he knocked it down. That takes trust in your teammate, trust in the play. He didn't try to still force something, still try to make something happen. And he might have would have got stopped. If Cam Boozer would have tried to force the issue, he might have would have got stopped. And Duke would have lost by 2. Duke would have probably ended up losing. If they stopped Boozer, they got the ball back, then we would have had to foul and hope they miss, and then it just, now the ball is back in their court. But what does he do? Just like he usually does, make the right play. That was part of the play. He dished it to Isaiah Evans, and he did what he does. you know, huge moment, huge play, huge for Duke and for Jon Scheyer. Got to be proud of that as a fan. They were on the ropes. They had to make a play. It ended up being a 3. Now a 2 would have tied it, and maybe it would have ended up going into overtime. But you want to win in regulation if you can. You want to go ahead and win in regulation, because when a team comes back like that, and then it's tied, and you go into overtime. To me, and I know Duke is at home, but to me, the momentum is on that team. They're in the game now. They feel like they can win now. So now it's a mental thing. So now you gotta grind it, for another 5 minutes. Get the lead again. Try to, So I'm just glad that it worked out the way it worked out, where Duke was able to win in regulation. Close, yes it was. Scary, yes it was. But I'm glad that this team has had their first scare. They had their first time of really, like, they had to make a play or they'll lose the game. Pretty much. I think it's good for the team. Secondly, I think it's good that in those situations you can come away with the dub. I don't feel like you have to always lose a game, like a close game or whatever, to learn something. You can learn something by still winning. You can learn that, hey man, we can be in these games that may not look the prettiest, and still come away with the dub. That's huge. That's huge. Last year's team really didn't have a lot of that, and I think it ended up hurting them in the tournament because they didn't handle the pressure well, and that's really what the bottom line was. You can't say it was Jon Scheyer. He's not out there. We couldn't even get the ball in. We couldn't even inbound the ball. Now that's last year. But just giving an example, we couldn't handle the pressure because we wasn't in those situations much. And you can practice those situations, but it's you can't really. I feel like you can't really learn unless you're actually in those situations in an actual game. And no better no higher state was that game than being in a Final Four game, a chance to play in the national championship. That you can't get no higher stakes than that. So you haven't really been in those pressure situations where you got to make a play, it's close, or you got to try to hold off a team from taking a lead or whatever, and they just just trump it up that they didn't handle it. They didn't handle it good, and it's too bad, because they truly should have been in a national championship game last year, truly. So I'm really proud of this team for I mean, hey, You lose the lead. I mean, you've been leading pretty much the whole game, and then that could be really tough mentally. It really can, man. And you gotta, and that's the reason why I didn't like the way that Coach Golden, and I like Coach Golden. I think he's a good, a heck of a coach. He's young. I mean, he looked like he's a college student. I mean, he's so, you know, but um, I didn't like the fact that he brought up. I mean, he really didn't give. Not that I heard that he really didn't uh, give any credit to Duke. You know, um, he basically Wine was basically kind of like blaming stuff on how they get calls and how Duke get calls and stuff like that. And I mean that, I ain't really like that, man. That's you could have left that to yourself. Even if you felt that way, and even if it maybe have some truth to it, that's everywhere, man. That's everywhere. Now there was a bad call. That was a goaltend, and I'm surprised that they didn't call a goaltend on that one that Pat blocked. It did hit the backboard first, you know. So, but that's on the referee. I mean, that's that referees miss it sometimes. They're human beings. Let's just be honest. They miss it sometimes, but generally they will call that. It had nothing to do with being at Duke. Generally they would call that, and they missed that. I don't know why they missed it, but they missed that one. So I give them that. But to come out and say something, kind of insinuate that was the reason why you guys lost, or that's why you have to, well, that's not true. that didn't lose that didn't lose the game for you guys. Duke made the stops when they needed to make the stops. And defense is important, man. You got to be able to stop people. And if you can't get stops, man, you may still could win. But you're gonna run up against somebody where they're gonna be just as good offensively, and if you can't get stops, you're gonna lose. And that's the reason why I love this team as far as their commitment to defense. Now, do they have breakdowns sometimes? Yeah, they do. Nobody's perfect. It's only 9 games in, but so far, they played pretty good defense. The offense is getting there. You just need more guys involved in the offense outside of Boozer and maybe a few other people. Now Pat was part of it, but get some of these wing and guards to be a little bit more consistent, and I think that will boost Duke up another notch, because now you can't just worry about Boozer. You gotta worry about Isaiah. You gotta worry about Seafalls. You gotta worry about Caden. You gotta worry about Star, Herminia. You gotta worry about another 3 or 4 or 5 more guys. So he's trying. Coach Sharp's trying to get these guys out there and get going. And some games it's gonna be ugly. Some games just gonna be ugly. I mean, again, Isaiah Evans is 0 for 7. I didn't even know that. He's 0 for 7. 3-point attempt. You know, I mean, not one, over. And we know that he ain't scared, man. He gonna shoot the ball, you know. But, sometimes he might, get a little happy. But you gotta love his enthusiasm. You gotta love his moxie. And I will say this too. He has played much better defense this year already. I mean, to have 5 blocks, that's impressive. That's impressive. And I mean, I know some people say, well, Florida lost to TCU. But TCU is a good team. You know what I mean? And the thing of it is that Florida's still, now Flan, and I had that feeling, man. I said one of those two are gonna have a better game against Duke. It never fails. Never fails. Boogie Flan and Lee man, they haven't done much of nothing. All of a sudden you play Duke and you want to have this breakout game. I'm serious, man. I had that feeling, but he's a good player. He's a good player, and sometimes all it takes is, you see it go down. You see it go down, and your confidence is boom. That's all I needed. I'm now, I'm looser. I'm not thinking about it. I'm looser. So, but anyway, so I just want to come on and just share a little bit. I just want to say, life lesson is that for Duke is that you just trust your teammate. That adversity, just because adversity comes, it's not what it is, it's how you handle it. And I felt that Duke handled it the way they needed to. And they're stacking. Not only are they getting wins, but they're getting confidence within themselves, within their teammates. And that's huge. That's huge. And that's what you want. That's what you want. So, anyway, hope everyone have a great one. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment. Who's your college basketball team, or NBA team, or college football, or NFL team? Put it in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't. Like. Thank you for watching. Like and comment for more. Blessings.